Today I'm going to show you how to make a trap beat in BandLab.
Step it up, never turn around. Level up, never turn it down. We don't got no time to waste, so you better pick up this.
My name is Frenetic. I'm a musician from Brooklyn, New York. Now I'm going to show you how to do it right now. First, open up the BandLab app, and if you have an account already, just go ahead and sign in. And if you don't have an account already, what are you waiting for? All the sounds, plugins, and tools I'm going to show you in this video are free, so go ahead and sign up. Then just click on the red plus sign in the bottom middle of the screen, and then click Open Studio to start a new project. Now everyone likes to start their beats differently, but I personally like to start with the drums, so I get a good idea of the groove early on in the track. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Sampler. So now you have a sampler with 16 available pads. We're going to put one-shots on these pads to create our drum kit. So for now we need a kick, snare, 2 hi-hats, and a crash cymbal. We can find all of these sounds in BandLab Sounds. So click on the pencil icon and then click Browse. Now you've opened up BandLab Sounds. You can go ahead and click on one-shots. And if you click on the magnifying glass, you could type in the sound that you're looking for. We can even type in trap into the searches to find sounds suited for that genre. So first we're going to search for kick. So I'm going to type in kick, trap, and when you find a sound that you like, just click on the plus button. Now it's automatically added it to the pad that you selected earlier, which was pad 1. Now let's tap on the pad to the right of that, which is pad 2, and we're going to look for a snare. Browse, and I'm going to type snare, trap. When you find one that you like, click the plus button. Now for the 2 hi-hats. But first, I'm just going to look for one hi-hat sample. Tap on the next pad to the right, click on browse. I'm going to type hi-hat, trap, and when you find one that you like, hit the plus button. And now instead of looking for another hi-hat, I'm going to duplicate this hi-hat onto the next pad to the right, which is pad 4. To do that, on mobile, all you have to do is just tap the 3rd pad and then drag your finger over to the 4th pad, and it'll duplicate the sound that you had there. So now I'm going to lower the volume slightly of the hi-hat on pad 3. To do that, just tap on the sample on pad 3, and then you have the volume knob right here, and you could slightly lower it down, just a little bit. So now we have 2 of the same hi-hat, but at different volumes. This is just to create a more realistic feeling with the hats. Almost done. Now let's find that second hi-hat sample, and we're going to put it on pad number 8. So pad number 8 is just right above pad number 4. And in case you're not sure about the pad numbers, in music production, pad 1 is usually the bottom left-hand pad, and then they go up chronologically from left to right, bottom to top. So pad number 8 would be right over pad number 4 if you count chronologically from the bottom left-hand corner. You can also see on BandLab there's a little 16 on the 16th pad, just in case you forget. Finally, we're going to add a crash cymbal on pad 12, which is going to be right above pad number 8. So click on pad 12, hit browse, and I'm going to search crash trap. When you find one that you like, click the plus symbol. By the way, if you want to make any of these one-shots play full out when you press the pad, click on one of the pads, then click edit, then click one shot. That means that when you tap the pad, the whole sample is going to play out. This is useful for adding the crash cymbal because the crash cymbal is a long drawn out sample and I don't want to sit here and hold the crash cymbal while it plays out. Okay, great. Now we have a little drum kit. So X out of the sampler, and now we're going to set the BPM. In order to set the BPM, we're going to click on the little gear icon on the top, and where it says tempo, we can use the plus and minus keys to get the desired BPM. So for now, I'm going to set the tempo to 140 BPM. Now go back to the main project view by hitting the waveform icon, and we're going to set a 4-bar loop. To set a 4-bar loop, we're going to click on the red rectangle region right here, and we're going to extend that out by dragging on the right-hand side of the rectangle region until we get to the end of 4. I'm going to put on my metronome so I can stay on beat, and to do that, we're going to click on the little metronome icon on the bottom right-hand corner. Now, when I click the red circle icon in the middle of the screen, it's going to record. So I'm going to hit record, and then I'm going to play the hi-hat from pad 4 on every quarter note. And in this case, you can hear the quarter notes represented by the metronome. To stop the recording, just hit on the red button again. And if you were offbeat, no worries. Just X out of the sampler, then double tap on the MIDI region that you just recorded in, which you now saw just appear on the project window. Zoom out a little bit by pinching the screen, and then tap and hold your finger on the screen away from the regions and drag until you select all the regions. Then hit this icon with the lines on the right side, and we're going to quantize it to the nearest 16th note. Now your hi-hats are perfectly on the grid. In some genres of music, you don't want to overdo quantize because it's going to make the beat sound stiff, but I think in this case, it's going to work pretty well. So now we're going to duplicate what we recorded and put it on pad number 3, which is the other hi-hat. Then we're going to offset it by 1/8 note, so that way we have 2 hi-hats going one after the other. So we're going to select all the notes again by tapping, holding, and dragging until you select all the notes. Then you're going to click on the 2 little squares, which is a copy icon. Then we're going to tap and hold on the area where it says 3, which represents pad 3, and click the clipboard, which represents taste. So now we have the same thing on pad number 4 and pad number 3, but we still have to offset it so that we have them going one after the other. So they're all still highlighted now. We're going to zoom in, and we're going to tap and hold on one of the notes and carefully drag it over to right here, and we can hear what it sounds like now. Okay, nice. So now let's shake it up by adding in the other hi-hat that we found. I like to add these in by fill, so I'm going to hit record and play the other hi-hat live. Let's try adding it in at the end of the 2nd and the 4th bar. And remember, you could always quantize if you mess up. Nice, so now our hi-hats are moving, steady, and we also have a little flair to them. Now we're going to add in the kick and the snare. We can also add these in manually by playing with the track. I'll add them in, and then I'll show you where I added them in on the piano roll so you can understand where I put them. Nice, so this is our main drum pattern now. X out of the sampler, and we're going to duplicate it until we have 8 bars. So tap on the MIDI region, click the copy button, which is the 2 squares that we saw before, scroll over to the beginning of bar 5, tap again, hit the clipboard option, and now it's pasted. Next, we're going to highlight both of the regions and merge them. So to do that, just tap and hold anywhere on a blank side of the screen, drag the selector over the 2 regions, click the little dots icon, and click merge. Now you have one big 8-bar drum loop. Finally, we're going to add a crash cymbal at the beginning of bar 1. Nice, now our drums are done. And you did all that manually without needing a drum loop. So now that we've got the rhythm taken care of with the drums, we're going to need to start adding in melodic elements of our track. Of course, we have rhythmic elements and we have melodic elements. Usually getting some sort of chords or even a simple melody line will help to create the character of the track. It'll also give the beat direction and ambiance as a whole. As I mentioned before, BandLab Sounds is a free sound library with so many different samples that you could choose from. Before we used it to find our drum one-shots, and now we can use it to find some melodies. I have a pack here on BandLab Sounds that's filled with melodies, chords, and all types of things that we can use to get started. So we're going to click on the plus sign to add a new track, then click on BandLab Sounds, and to find my pack, we're going to search my name, the frenetic. And you can see all of the samples here divided up by the type of sample. We got beats, synth, lead, keyboard, bass, percussion, and more. Let's use this sample of block chords to start getting the melodic journey of this beat going. At this point, BandLab should have set the key of the project to the first sample that you've chosen, but just in case it didn't, you want to check and go over to the gear icon again, and look where it says project key. So the sample that I just added was in E flat minor, and the project here says D sharp minor, which is the same as E flat minor. Awesome, so now we have our drums, we have some chords, now we need to add a bass. Click add track and add a virtual instrument. Now of course this is a trap beat, so we need to add an 808. So click on 808s, and let's try this 808 saturated bass. When you tap it once, it's going to download the sound, and if you tap it again, it's going to add it to your track. So if you know your scales, then great. We can play E flat and B flat to stay in key here because, again, we're in E flat minor, or also known as D sharp minor. But if you don't know how to play keys, we can take advantage of BandLab's Smart Keys function, which makes all of the keys available, the correct keys in the scale. So to do this, just click on the little piano icon in the bottom right-hand corner, and then click Smart Keys. Then just double check that the scale is correct. Up in the top right-hand corner, you'll see that it says D sharp minor, which is good. So for this track, like I said, because it's in E flat minor, we can play these 2 keys, E flat and B flat. And these notes work because they're the root notes of the chords from the sample that I chose. So let's record that and keep the rhythm with the drums. Remember, if you need to quantize, you can quantize. Just X out of the little instrument region, then double tap on the MIDI region, and do as we did before. Select all of the notes, click the little lines icon, and then select quantize. And again, in this case, I can quantize it to the 16th note. Finally, we need to add some sort of melody. A nice easy way to do this is to use an arpeggiator. An arpeggiator basically plays out the individual notes of a chord, and an arpeggiator is available on the desktop version of BandLab. So quickly, I'm going to jump over to the desktop version of BandLab to show you how I do this. If you don't have desktop available, don't worry. You can always create a melody just by tapping on the keys and coming up with something cool that way too. Don't be afraid to get creative, and remember, you have the Smart Keys option available to play notes that are always going to be in the scale. So you can create something cool by playing with those too. But let's jump over to the desktop version of BandLab real quick so I can show you how to use the arpeggiator. So we're going to add a track, click virtual instrument, and add a lead sound. Now I like this heavy lead sound, so we can use this, set a chord, and set ARP settings. So I set mine to this so you could copy it. Now let's record and still play with the 1st and 5th scale degrees like we did before with the bass. This is cool, but let's add some effects to make it pop. We can jump back over to the mobile version of BandLab now and use all the effects that are available. To add effects, just click on the little FX option on the instrument track of your choice. In this case, we're adding it to the lead. First, I'm going to add a multi-shifter to get a bigger sound. Click on the magnifying glass to search. So in this case, I'm going to bring up the octave down and the octave up, and a little bit of the 5th up as well. Next, I'm going to add a 16th note delay to get the melody moving a little bit more. So to add another effect, just hit on the plus icon and we're going to look for delay. There are a few different delay options to choose from, but in this one, I'm going to use D-Delay Plus. And here are the settings I use so you can copy them. And next, I'm going to add some large hall reverb to create some space. So we're going to click the plus sign again, and we're going to search for reverb. And I really like to use the Space Maker reverb, but there are other reverbs available too. Okay, great. So I kind of want this melody a little bit in the background, so I'm going to lower the volume of it. In order to lower the volume, we're going to click on the bottom right-hand corner, these little fader symbols, and now we have all of the faders available for all of our different tracks. To lower the volume, you're just going to lower one of the faders. In this case, we're going to lower it on the lead. And that's it. Now you've got a nice little trap solo loop, but for now, it's just a loop. So we have to arrange it so that we have different sections of our song. So we have things like an intro, a verse, a chorus, etc. So to do that, I'm first going to copy all the loops that we made and duplicate it a bunch of times. So let's tap and hold in a blank area on the screen, highlight all of the tracks that we made, click copy, then drag over to bar 9, then tap in a blank area on one of the instrument tracks, and we're going to click the clipboard option to paste. So let's do this over and over again until we reach bar 57, and I'll explain why bar 57 in a minute. So let's just repeat what we did. Now, just as a side note, you might be wondering why I'm not just looping all of the regions. You can do that, and it might be a little bit easier, but the reason why I don't want to do this in this case is because I'm going to change each of the loops a little bit in order to create some differences throughout my beat. So if I have a loop going, I have the same exact thing going on and on and on again, and if I make a change, I'm going to be making a change to all of those repetitions. So if I copy it and paste it in this way, I have individual loops that are going independently of one another. But if you did decide to loop all of the regions individually, that's okay, because you can split the regions later on if you like. But for now, I like to do it like this. Okay, great. So now let's focus on the intro in the first copy. Sometimes what I like to do in the intro is to have the chords going, maybe with 1 or 2 light elements of the beat. So in this case, I'm going to have the chords, the hi-hats, and the cymbal going. So in the first 8 bars, let's delete everything except for the drums and the keys. Now we're going to go into the MIDI region of the drum loop, and we're going to delete everything except for the hi-hats and the cymbals. Now this is why it was important that I didn't just loop all of the regions and I copied and pasted them instead, because if I make a change to the drum loop now and it was looped, it would change the entire loop, and I don't want to lose the hard work that I did. We're going to select and delete everything except for the hi-hats and the crash cymbal, like I said. And for the hi-hats, I'm just going to keep the 2 main hi-hats going back and forth. on the 16th notes that I had from before. I'm not going to use the extra little fast hi-hat flares that I did. Great, now we have a little intro that's 8 bars. So now let's make a verse. In a lot of songs, verses are 16 bars long. Since this track is 140 BPM, it's pretty fast. So 16 bars is going to feel a lot like 8 bars. So in this case, and this happens in a lot of trap music that's fast like this, we're actually going to make the verse 32 bars, which is the double. The reason why we do this is so that we can get a verse that feels like 16 bars. So we're going to focus on these next 32 bars of our track. So the first thing that I know that I don't want during the verse is to lead melody. So I'm going to get rid of that during the verse. So let's delete that for all 32 bars. And I also know that coming right out of the intro, I don't want to give away the full beat yet. So for the first 8 bars of the verse, I'm going to take away the snare and the hi-hat flares, that third hi-hat that I added before. And we're just going to have the main hi-hats, the kick, and the crash cymbal. Nice. So now the beginning of the verse has a little bit of a build up to it coming out of the intro. So now I'm going to let the rest of the verse just be kind of what it was before, but I can get creative by dropping out some of the drum hits here and there so the beat doesn't get that repetitive and it stays interesting. A good place to drop out some drums would be at the midpoint of the verse and also coming out of the verse going into the hook. So let's try to do this at bar 24 and then again at bar 40. Here at bar 24, I'm going to totally take out the drums for half a bar. So to do this, just zoom in, go right here, which is at the half of the bar. Tap on the MIDI region, click this little symbol which represents the split tool, and then hit the delete button to delete it. Here at bar 40, I'm going to completely remove the drums, but I'm actually just going to keep that accent hi-hat in there so it can lead us into the hook. Taking out the drums right before the hook will allow the hook to feel bigger and more impactful. You'll see how that sounds. Nice. So now we have a good arrangement of the intro, the verse, and the hook, and we can repeat this for verse 2 and hook 2 if you like. So at this point, we've created a kind of ambient, soulful trap loop. I can imagine somebody rapping over this or even singing a catchy melody with a tuned effect. Just as a quick example, I'll show you how you could do this with BandLab and use the effects available to get that heavy tuned effect. We're going to add a new track, click on voice audio, and for now, I'm just going to select the area where the hook is, and I'm going to record over that. To get that heavy tuned effect, I'm going to select the auto pitch feature. Just double check that it's in the right key, and it should be, which is D#/E flat minor, and I'm going to turn this effect all the way up. As a bonus, you can even check out some of the vocal presets on BandLab. There's a ton of vocal presets by a lot of great artists, or you could just play with the effects like we did with making the beat.
Step it up, never turn around. Level up, never turn it down. We don't got no time to waste. So ya better pick up, bitch. Step it up, never turn around. Level up, never turn it down. We don't got no time to waste. So ya better pick up, bitch.
And that's it. What do you think? Let us know in the comments below and like and share this video if it helped you out. Cheers.